budgetary expenditure that would then become necessary. Jamaica cannot afford this. On behalf of all Jamaicans, therefore, I appeal to all public sector employees for patience and for calm. We understand your apprehension. We understand your fear. We know that you have been waiting a long time for the compensation restructuring reform, and many are now anxious about what it might mean for you. We know you have been hearing things, sharing figures, viewing calculations, and there may be some misunderstandings about how this will all work. It is certainly possible that in some instances you are receiving partial and incomplete information out of context. I humbly ask that you avoid conclusions at this point. There is a consultative process underway. Things will be much clearer once these consultations with your union or bargaining group are completed. For a complex and ambitious reform such as this restructuring of public sector compensation across all of government for 110,000 public sector employees organized into 47 central government bargaining units and 140 public bodies, there has to be an established process as we drive towards implementation. The process is that for those who work in central government, civil servants, police, teachers, nurses, doctors, dentists, other healthcare workers, correctional officers, firefighters, etc., we have been engaged in consultations with your union and bargaining group representatives. The Ministry of Finance and the Public Service has already met with 45 out of the 47 central government bargaining groups and unions. You will have the opportunity to provide feedback, which will be considered in the second round of consultations, which will shortly begin. There is therefore an established mechanism through which concerns, misconceptions, and or misunderstandings can be addressed. Please take us at our word that no public sector employee will be worse off. Some persons have responded to this assurance with calculations, valid or invalid, that supposedly demonstrate a decline in net pay as a supposed refutation of this assurance. This is misplaced. The assurance is not a statement that contends that everyone is better off with the proposals on the table. We are aware that in any set of proposals designed to cover 110,000 public sector employees, there could be cases where the proposed changes lead to less net pay. What the assurance instead means, however, is that wherever through reasoned, objective, and data-driven feedback it can be proven that someone would indeed be worse off, we will work to find a fix. For public sector employees employed to public bodies, I know that you have heard where your colleagues in central government are in receipt of information about the compensation restructuring, and your management and your representatives have not yet been able to tell you when your consultations will begin. This has been met with displeasure. I completely understand that. For those public bodies, such as the National Water Commission, the National Irrigation Commission, the Broadcasting Commission, Civil Aviation Authority, PICA, Petrojam, among others, where the agitation for reclassification exercises predates the commencement of this all-of-government compensation restructuring reform, it is particularly irksome for you that from your perspective, now that compensation restructuring is here, you now seem to be at the back of the queue. The irony for you is too much to absorb. I understand that too. Given the huge scope of this exercise, however, and its complexity, for better or worse, we decided to conclude with central government first and then engage with public bodies. Given current timelines, we anticipate that engagement with public bodies will occur within the next 6 months, similar to the timeline provided to the NWC. Though this timeline may seem far away, I ask you to consider that such a comprehensive reform with respect to public sector compensation has no precedent in Jamaica. It has never happened before. We have been ambitious in looking after your interests. We therefore ask for patience. We need the same patience which allowed the hard-working teams to complete 4 years of work, setting up the policy framework for this reform, engaging the public sector about its key elements, procuring and engaging the services of multinational consultants, collecting and analyzing data on 110,000 jobs, designing and completing surveys, modeling, forecasting, and communicating. After enduring the road phase of this reform marathon, we have now entered the stadium and are actually on the home stretch in full visibility of the finish line. It is supreme patience that got us here. As close as we are, we cannot now afford to collapse on the track. Instead, fueled by that same patience, together we can make it across the finish line. We are further strengthening our partnership with our trade union partners and bargaining groups, with whom we have achieved tremendous things over the years. This process is and will be inclusive and will consider all views. We have approached the restructuring of public sector compensation with great ambition. Working with our partners in the trade unions and bargaining groups, we are doing what has never been done before in Jamaica. The public sector has been through a long night, and the day of reform finally approaches. But, my fellow Jamaicans, it is always darkest just before dawn. Let not the darkness of this brief pre-dawn period lead us to stumble as a society. Kicking our own can of milk over, even if unintended, will only delay the emergence of daylight. And even then, with spilled milk, daylight would not be sustained. Patience and orderly discourse, on the other hand, will allow a sustainable dawn to emerge. You can rely on the partnership between the government, trade unions, and bargaining groups to secure the interests of all public sector employees and the wider Jamaican society as we advance this ambitious, necessary, and important reform. I will continue to keep you updated. God bless you, and God